Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
I saw a slightly grainy video on Twitter, like someone had recorded a TV show from their cell phone. It was very short, just 30 seconds long. Here, take a look.
Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
That's incredible, isn't it? It's almost like a conspiracy theory about Justin Trudeau, except it was said by Justin Trudeau. Here's what I tweeted about it. I thought this was supposed to be a conspiracy theory, but here it is, straight from Trudeau's mouth. The pandemic is the excuse for a great reset of the world led by the UN. As of mid-afternoon today, that tweet had nearly 3 million impressions. That's the number of people who looked at it. And more than 2 million people stopped to actually play the video. Millions. It was retweeted by all sorts of people in Canada and abroad. Why? Well, it's sort of obvious. He admits that he is exploiting the crisis of the pandemic for other political purposes. I mean, we know that. He took the pandemic as an excuse to shut down Parliament, to shut down press conferences, to keep journalists away from him, to pass a budget. Well, what am I saying? Without passing a budget, he borrowed more and spent more money than Canada did to fight both world wars combined. His public health officer issues a series of ever more bizarre edicts, whipping up fear and panic, demonizing anyone who disagrees with her as racist, and generally keeping people in a state of submission, confusion, worry. You're locked down. National unemployment is a staggering 9%, but Trudeau thinks this is the perfect moment to announce that he's raising immigration to record levels, 1.2 million foreigners coming, half of whom Trudeau admits will be uneconomic, will immediately go on social services and welfare, and those who do work, well, they'll be driving down wages as they compete for Canadians already desperate for work, and they'll drive up housing prices too. So yeah, we already knew that Trudeau was exploiting the crisis for his political ends. We just never knew that he thought about it in those terms also, that he was consciously sneaking through whatever he could as fast as he could in the name of the pandemic. Now a lot of things make more sense, don't they? Well, it was pretty easy to find the original source video that had been clipped to a 30-second cut for that tweet. It's from this, the United Nations itself. The actual name of the event that was filmed there was Hybrid Press Briefing by the Secretary General, along with the Prime Ministers of Canada and Jamaica, Justin Trudeau and Andrew Holness. They briefed reporters on the meeting of financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the era of COVID-19 and beyond. So you got it right there, what they were doing. And the thing about Trudeau, when he's giving speeches to foreign audiences, there's two things about it. First, he thinks probably accurately that no one overseas knows how much he's despised here at home. So for example, he can go to Davos, to the World Economic Forum, to talk about what a feminist he is, while back at home we all know that he sexually assaulted Rose Knight in Creston, BC.
Often a man experiences an interaction as being benign or not inappropriate, and a woman, particularly in a professional context, can experience it differently, and we have to respect that and reflect on that.
He can hold himself out as a great white hope for all the third world, whereas here at home we know he casually wore his racist blackface costume so many times, he lost count of it so many times. It literally happened in 3 different decades of his life so many times. He literally had a costume kit at home, ready for use on a moment's notice, like some people, I don't know, have a tuxedo in the closet just in case. Trudeau has a blackface costume just in case. I wonder if he's ever even thrown it out. So some foreigners might actually believe him, though come to think of it, I'm not sure anymore. Trudeau was so certain that he was going to win the corrupt election to get Canada a temporary seat on the United Nations Security Council, but he just didn't. He was a total flop, despite probably spending about $1 billion on his vanity campaign when you add in all his foreign aid spending. So maybe they're wise to him overseas after all. Or maybe black leaders in Africa just don't like a racist in blackface, just a hypothesis there. But there is something else whenever Trudeau speaks to the foreign press, whether it's that he's trying to impress them or that he somehow thinks we back home won't hear him. Trudeau gets weirder than normal, more extreme than normal. It was that way in this super gross article in the New York Times shortly after his election that Trudeau said, quote, "There is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada." Yeah, go to hell, buddy. Was he trying to impress New Yorkers about how cosmopolitan he was? Was he telling them what he thought they wanted to hear? Or was he finally free of mere Canadians who he weirdly thought wouldn't read his comments? So he was just truly being himself. Who knows? But that's, I think, what we had here again in his pandemic press conference at the United Nations, trying to please foreigners and feeling unfettered by mere Canadian citizens. Let me show you a few more clips from that same press conference. What you saw in that Twitter video was just 30 seconds. Here's more. I'm going to cut out the parts in French where he basically repeats his English points, and I'm going to cut out the other participants. Here are some key Trudeau clips.
The fight against COVID-19 is far from over. In many parts of the world, including Canada, the number of new cases is rising and quickly. We must do everything we can to flatten the curve as much as possible. That means following public health recommendations and using all the tools available, from wearing masks to social distancing to, in Canada, downloading the free COVID Alert app.
So far, so boring. Of course, he himself doesn't follow those rules. Here he is at a Black Lives Matter protest on Parliament Hill. I mean, look, if there's a woke photo op, he's not going to miss it because of some social distancing rule, is he? I'll skip to his boring boilerplate, and I'll just go to the new stuff here.
Around the world, the pandemic has worsened long-standing challenges of poverty, inequality, and climate change. Last spring, Canada convened a high-level meeting with Prime Minister Holness of Jamaica and the Secretary-General to discuss a global response as we build a better, more equitable system. In May, we agreed to look at 6 urgent areas of action to mobilize financing, and today, with over 60 international partners, we've continued that important work.
Hey, did you know that? Did you know that Trudeau, instead of focusing on Canada and the crisis here, and I don't just mean the health crisis, if it even amounted to that, but I mean the economic crisis that he and the rest of the political class caused. Did you know that he was actually instead working with foreign leaders to put together a bailout for foreign countries? What, the CBC didn't bring that to your attention? I mean, it's been 5 years since Trudeau promised clean water on Canadian Indian reserves, but hey, they don't get a vote they don't get a vote to decide who's on the UN Security Council, do they? They don't vote for who gets a Nobel Peace Prize, do they? So instead, Trudeau spent his time and our billions on foreign schemes like that. And none of it worked. He did not get on the Security Council, but everyone took his money. A fool and his money are soon parted, the saying goes. Trouble is, he's the fool, but it's our money. All right, here's the next clip.
From ensuring equitable access to vaccines to providing more time for distressed countries to make bilateral debt payments, including Caribbean and small island states, we're working on concrete options that will help build a more resilient world for the short, medium, and long term. The global community must not give up on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. In fact, we should seize this opportunity to do even more. Earlier this morning, I announced that Canada will invest an additional $400 million in humanitarian and development funding to fight COVID-19, with even more in the years to come. We will make sure that women and girls who've been disproportionately impacted by the consequences of COVID-19 benefit from this new funding. We must listen to the needs of small island developing states and other vulnerable countries and help carry their voices to the World Bank, the G7, the G20, and other organizations this fall.
Did you know that? Did you know that Trudeau was prioritizing, what was that, small island countries? See, vulnerable? What about our own vulnerable communities? His own province, Quebec, where 61% of all Canadian deaths from the virus have happened, including in his own riding. Why is he taking our money and spending his time worrying about small island countries that are vulnerable? Quebec has had more COVID deaths than all other provinces combined, even though Quebec only has a quarter of the population. Why? And why hasn't a single reporter even asked him that question? I think we would ask him that question, but Trudeau has the RCMP frog march our reporters away from press conferences, and the rest of the media gets the message pretty quick. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.